The attraction for 17 Spring Street was off the back of 35 Spring Street, which we undertook with Bates Smart on the architecture there as well. It's the prime location, it's that New York sort of Central Park aspect. We're really encouraged by the market's response to bigger, better quality apartments. The idea was to then work out what the strategy was for getting the optimal design outcome. What we thought would be the best way to address that would be to have a design competition.
We've had a long, enduring sort of working relationship with Cbus Property. They view the world in a similar way, I would say. I mean, they're leaders in terms of understanding what type of product should be created for a project and understanding and distinguishing what the value proposition is.
They were after architectural excellence. They understood they were in a very sensitive area of the city, right on the edge of the Hoddle grid, next to Harry Seidler's famous 1 Spring Street, and then how this would fit in. So how could this add to the city? And we explored a range of different options about glass, horizontal treatment, vertical treatment, how you split the building up. And so again, there's this exploration of what the right response is.
One of the great aspects of the Bates Smart response was the way that they presented a building that's beautifully curated in terms of its adjacent buildings. Everything harmonised beautifully with its surrounds and just had a rhythm to it.
It's really, the whole project's really like an extruded podium. And I think most people do understand, if you sort of said the word Chicago or New York, you'd see a lot of extruded podiums like alongside Central Park, for instance. And when you get to Central Park, there's a kind of wall of buildings and it creates a very strong edge. And we've been fascinated by Spring Street being the last great street in Melbourne that's been unaffected by change. And what's happening is actually it's setting off all the Treasury Gardens and all the beautiful Treasury building, Parliament building.
It's this incredibly potent thing about the core ideas of Melbourne, so the grid and the landscape being brought together.
We looked at the commercial palazzo buildings that were built in the early part of the 19th century. Just as Melbourne was going from a Victorian city into a modernistic city, there was this in-between zone where we still used stone as a cladding material, but they were built as more like steel frame structures. And some very beautiful buildings along Collins Street that you see, holding corners. There's also corner buildings like the Manchester Unity building, which have quite an extreme verticality associated with them.
And then you've got Seidler's building as well, which is beautiful in its own right. And it sweeps up, it steps up in this furling relationship. So again, there's a whole range of different visual cues in the area.
There's an irrefutable quality to those buildings. But the idea, I think, is trying to distill into the detailing, the materiality, the essence of the idea, which will go from the facade and site expression, the massing, all the way down to the door handles and the mirrors and the carpets and things like that. It's a consolidated, integrated design philosophy. You very rarely find buildings that are complete, that feel complete. And that's kind of why we're interested in old buildings, because old buildings tend to be complete.
We recognise we leave a legacy, and we recognise that these buildings need to stand the test of time. People that are going to live in it for a long period of time, or the next round of purchases, are going to be conscious that that quality was inserted from the start.
In terms of the entry piece into the city, an idea that you've got the entry piece, you've got the first stanza, the first moment, the first burst of energy, where you get the most prestigious corner of the Hoddle grid with never to be built out views towards Treasury Gardens.
I'd like to think that Cbus Property really launched back into the high-end apartment market, and 35 Spring Street gave us a real good taste for that. And 17 Spring Street is the evolution. It's a 2.0 version of 35, but everything is going to be refined even greater. People are going to be proud to say that I live at 17 Spring Street.